more helpless than most young animals. Furthermore, he is dependent on his caretakers for a longer time. But in spite of his general helplessness, the baby can carry out many actions which permit him to take advantage of the help and support offered him by his parents. For example, he can suck. Put a breast or nippled bottle in or near his mouth, and the chances are he will begin immediately to make sucking movements. Frequently, just a touch near the mouth will do the same thing. Touch his cheek, and he is likely to turn his head and mouth toward the spot that was touched. Then, just in case the touch happened to offer food, he would be in a position to receive it. This has been called the rooting reflex. The mouth area is extremely sensitive at this age, reacting to touch as well as being involved in the intake of food. The baby can do many other things also. Any strong stimulation will probably cause him to startle. You can see this if you suddenly disturb his position or if you make a loud noise. Also, he reacts to light, though he does not keep his eyes open very long at a time. He will follow an object moved across his field of vision for short distances. He can grasp an object placed in his palm and hold on tightly. Put him face down, and he will move his head enough to clear his air passages. Tickle his nose or mouth, and he will manage to move away just a little bit. To just about everything, the young baby responds with everything he has. That is, he responds somewhat in an all-or-none fashion. Tickle his foot, and he is likely to move not only the tickled foot, but also the other foot and leg, and perhaps both hands and his head. Gradually, however, he learns to be more precise and not to waste movements. With this slightly older baby, a tickle on the left foot is somewhat more likely to produce a movement of that foot only, while the other one stays put. Though such achievements may seem minor and insignificant, they help him establish a pattern of responding to his environment and enabling him to adjust to it and adjust it to him. Perhaps the most powerful tool that babies have is a very simple one: their ability to cry. How long can an adult stand to hear a baby cry? Most of us cannot take it very long. Chances are that if you are the person responsible for the care of the baby, you will do something to try to stop the crying. This mother is faced with the task of comforting her crying baby. Now, the message of the cry is not very precise. The mother can only guess and then test out her guess by trying something or other. If the baby does not stop, then she will need to try something else. If he does stop, the mother has probably interpreted the message correctly. For the baby, this makes possible a very simple but important type of learning. The baby learns that when he cries, something happens. His smile, of course, gives out another message. and he may soon learn that it brings more love and attention and perhaps accomplishes more than a cry ever could. A close-up view of an adult's face seems most effective in bringing forth the baby smile. Learning goes on constantly with the young baby in every area of development. From the stage of sucking only when something actually touches his mouth or face, he soon progresses to the point at which he begins to make mouth movements when he sees the bottle. Or he may actively pursue it with hands or feet. Or with a look or smile of expectation. More learning and more development of the ability to interpret signals that help the baby anticipate what is going to happen. During the early months, important advances also occur in the use of the eyes. At first, the baby cannot control his eye muscles much better than he can control any others. But eye control quickly improves, and that is a major development. Once the baby gets his eyes under reasonable control, he begins to look at everything about him, scanning the environment for interesting objects. Gradually, however, babies become more particular about what they will look at. The one thing that comes to have the most appeal is someone else's face, especially if that face looks back. By 6 months of age, babies are interested in almost anything. Once an object has been grasped, it is almost certain to be put into the mouth. Holding 2 things at once is difficult, not only because the hands have trouble, but also because the attention is in rather short supply. Holding 3 things at once is almost impossible at this age. Something has to go, and out of sight is pretty much out of mind. Babies of this age begin to be more persistent in their efforts. Also, around this time, most babies begin to show a preference for one hand or the other. More evidence of the development of his brain and nervous system and the capacity to learn new and more complicated things. Once the baby can control head and eye movements, what is heard is related to what is seen. Watch what this baby does when she hears a bell. She tracks it with her eyes. Until she heard it, she did not know it was there. But every new sound and sight must compete with other things going on, sometimes unsuccessfully. If a toy is given to the baby to hold, she tastes it, pokes it, bangs it. she passes it from one hand to the other and seems to try to get some idea of what it is like by every means at her disposal. Still more learning. But no matter how enjoyable a toy is, it can seldom compete with the most appealing one of all, the new one. At this age, fatigue builds up quickly, and even toys that were appealing and interesting just a moment ago can lose some of their appeal. Between 6 and 9 months, subtle but important changes occur. For one thing, the world changes from a lie-down to a sit-up world. These 9-month-old twins sit up, easily balanced, while they examine their environment. They handle objects and taste them. When the rattle is hidden, the little girl goes after it. She has learned from experience that things covered up are still there. No more is it simply out of sight, out of mind. At this age, a baby may need a little coaxing to accept a toy directly from a stranger. But holding two at once is easier now. When one is dropped, the eyes, if not the hands, follow it. At this age, very tiny objects, such as pieces of cereal, can be picked up as the baby learns to take advantage of the fact that she has a thumb. At this age, a baby will exert a tremendous amount of effort to obtain a preferred toy, though he may be easily distracted. The behavior of others becomes very important, and true imitation of gesture and speech can begin. During the last quarter of the first year, highly visible changes occur rapidly with increasing age. In the following film sequence, we have highlighted some fairly typical patterns of response to 3 developmental tasks: moving about, handling blocks, and finding a hidden object. To do this, we have chosen 3 babies: the 9-month-old boy on the left, the 10-month-old girl in the middle, and the 11-month-old girl on the right. First, observe the locomotion of the 9-month-old boy. He crawls about for short distances, easily able to pursue toys or people that interest him. His twin, however, has not yet begun to crawl. This 10-month-old girl crawls with less effort, body raised from the floor, and she also spends much time pulling herself to a standing position. The 11-month-old girl walks while holding on to the furniture or her mother's hand, and can even grab a toy while on her feet. In block handling, the same 3 babies demonstrate the advantage that 1 month can offer. The 9-month-old boy can handle 2 blocks, though often one is dropped, and the 2 blocks are not used together to any extent. Basically, he plays with only one at a time. The 10-month-old girl not only can hold 2 at once, but she also appears more able to use the 2 together. The 3rd one, however, is still too much. The 11-month-old grabs both blocks easily and is quite resourceful in her attempts to obtain the 3rd. Now for the same 3 babies on a hidden object problem. The 9-month-old boy looks away the first time, but when given a second trial, he is successful. The 10-month-old girl quickly throws aside the pillow and grabs the hidden cracker. The 11-month-old girl immediately finds the hidden block. When the problem is made a little more difficult, she lets it be known by her behavior and her facial expression that she realizes she has been tricked. Perhaps this description of the process of infant learning has sounded as though it all occurred automatically, as though it all came from within, as though the people in the baby's environment had no role to play. Nothing, of course, could be further from the facts. At every step in the process, the people who are important to the baby play a major role. From his parents, his brothers and sisters, his grandparents, and interested friends must come the stimulation necessary to develop fully his ability to learn. Little things can make a big difference. Consider something as apparently insignificant as the position into which the baby is habitually placed during its waking hours. He stays put wherever he is put down. If kept on his back, and if no people are in sight, he may well have a pretty monotonous view. Until he can turn himself over and look around until he finds something interesting, his seeing and looking can be given an assist by putting him down on his stomach part of the time. From this position, he can practice some of the movements he needs to master before being able to crawl or walk, and he can choose what he wants to look at to some extent. Mother's face is far more interesting than the ceiling. Or he can be propped in a comfortable position and permitted to examine his surroundings. In this position, he can see and can also use his hands to practice reaching and holding. During the first half year or so, we know that the baby needs people and he needs a variety of experiences to help him learn. But sometime between 6 months and a year, he seems to need something else. He needs special people. Not just anybody will do anymore. In particular, he seems to need his mother. For some reason, babies reared without this special attachment do not seem to learn as well. This has been demonstrated by observations of children who have had to grow up without a special person. Part of this process of singling out one person can be demonstrated by the reaction to strangers observed in babies beyond the age of about 6 months. Notice the way this baby responds to a stranger. She is uncertain and reluctant, but eventually willing to respond with a brief gesture of friendliness. Now watch her response when her mother beckons. Somehow the world, including the stranger, looks different from that vantage point. Contrast that with the behavior of another baby of the same age who has been separated from her mother and has not seen her for 3 months. To her, all people are pretty much the same, and she goes from one stranger to another with little hesitation. But she does not reach out to people, and she does not respond with joy and enthusiasm to anyone or anything. She looks frightened and unhappy. Significantly, her overall development lags considerably behind schedule. She is obviously underweight, and she lacks many of the skills one would expect of a child of 10 months. Toys have little or no appeal for her, and she rather passively accepts whatever happens to her. The cookie seems to interest her, and she reaches for it. But she will not try to pick it up if it is the least bit out of reach. It must be placed in or near her hand, or it is not for her to have. This baby can stand, but her balance is poor. The hidden toy problem does not challenge her, perhaps because she has so little interest in toys. In such cases, if the separation from the mother does not last too long, or if a substitute can be arranged who will give the baby a lot of tender, loving care, the learning deficit associated with prolonged separation of a baby from its mother can usually be corrected. The importance of other people is nowhere shown more clearly than in the process of learning to talk. Long before he can talk, a baby must be talked to. He must hear sounds made in relation to objects in his environment and in relation to his own needs. From a very early age, babies produce sounds by themselves, but it is only through the guidance of others that they learn to shape sounds into words. One often hears parents express the belief that older children will teach the baby in the family how to talk. This is apparently not so. While contact with other children is important to a baby in many ways, it does not seem to make the difference that one might think in helping the baby learn to talk. Evidence for this can be found in the fact that, on the whole, second and later born children are slower in learning to talk than our first-born children. From the standpoint of learning language, there seems to be no effective substitute for the experience of being talked to by loving and attentive adults.
Sleepy girl, sleepy girl.
Helping a baby learn brings many rewards to the parents as well as the baby. In fact, the little personal touches that bring pleasure to the parent are also the things that prime the baby's development. Stopping to talk to or smile at the baby while working. Playfully encouraging him to try new things. Helping him to develop his own sense of identity. Helping him achieve new and more mature postures. Helping him muster up the courage to take those first steps. And helping him back up and reassuring him when he tumbles. By such participation and encouragement, the parents invite the baby to move on to a higher level. In this process, parents will receive much assistance from play materials. They can help a baby learn shapes and colors and improve eye and hand coordination. But they need not be fancy or expensive toys. An empty food carton offers a variety of colors, textures, shapes, and the opportunity to associate pictures with real objects the baby has known. An old magazine that won't cause too much upset if it gets torn will contain many appealing pictures that encourage the baby to improve his perceptual skills and to use his developing powers of speech. And, of course, nothing could be better than those most appealing of all play materials, Mother's pots and pans. Such sounds, tastes, and such a sense of being involved with objects that have meaning to the whole family. Thus, in their everyday routines, parents can nourish the learning careers of their babies. In humble but significant activities, parents can help their babies learn to learn.